back, everybody, to another episode of Collector Showcase. For anybody joining the channel that's a little bit newer, maybe watching back later, this is a episodic series where I interview collectors, people in the actual industry of collectibles, and really just try to get an understanding of who they are, kind of behind the brand, behind what they do. Try to have people on that are not normally on live streams, and our guest today is going to be one of those people. I haven't seen too many things where you've talked online about kind of Kanto Shark and kind of what you do, but ultimately, guys, our next guest tonight is going to be Kanto Shark, Mr. Jared himself. How you doing tonight, man? How's everything going?
Doing fantastic. I was excited that we could carve out some time to talk some Pokemon business. And, like Colt said, it's pretty much one of my first podcasts that I've agreed to just because I love Colt, what he's doing, and I'm excited. Let's get going.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. It's gonna be a good conversation. I know that you've got really a pretty large following on Instagram, and that's something that even myself, that's where the majority of people, probably found me initially, and YouTube's not as big of a space for most people. So for anybody, who's never really heard of Kanto Shark or kind of what you guys do, maybe take a quick couple minutes and let us know, who you are, who's the brand of Kanto Shark, and kind of what you guys do in the hobby so far.
Yeah, like Colt said, my name's Jared. I own Kanto Shark. I also operate it. We have a couple other team members, but we specialize in selling cardboard, Pokemon specifically. We're one of the very few Pokemon-specific marketplaces, which I think is special, where when someone thinks of a Pokemon brand, you think of Kanto Shark. That's my aim for it. We've been in business for 5 years now, and we're really excited for 2025 with the market the way it is right now, and what's to come.
Yeah, I can't say anybody's complaining about the market, especially if you're a consigning service at the moment. It is it's wild out there right now. And for anybody, again, watching back, what is this? February of 2025, we are in an absolute rocket ship at the moment. And, maybe somebody's watching this back a year or two later, but I hope it stays the same. I don't believe that it probably will, but at least right now, everybody's pretty happy with the way our collectibles are working at the moment for us.
Yeah, so, I mean, for consignment service right now, just looking at the data, comparing over, I know a couple other places did this. I compared January 2024 number of sales, and then also sales volume overall, like sales revenue from 2024 January, 2025 January. And we sold about a quarter number of the items, but we did 10 times the revenue that we did last year. And so just to give you an idea, people are focusing on the high-end items, at least with us, and that's been our focus. But that just tells me people are being smarter with their money, collecting, investing. They're buying a little bit higher end stuff. They're spending more. Maybe they have more liquid cash available. But that tells me, and it's showing signs of a very bullish market, and I don't see any signs of that stopping right now. Eventually it will, but I'm really excited for what 2025 is, because it's every business finally gets to flourish in this market. In the last couple of years, it's been, you're kicking rocks until you get the next consignment to come in to stay in business. So if you made it this far, I think you're going to do well.
Yeah. It's interesting too, when we talk about, high end, it's almost like, high end a year ago is not high end today. That's one thing that, especially with the way that certain modern cards are being treated. I mean, how many SIRs are we seeing right now that are, north of $1,000? And not saying 1,000 is at the high end level. I think that's kind of starting in your entry point. But, you're starting to see cards. I mean, look at Moonbryon. We kind of have to, how long have we been streaming? What, 2 minutes maybe? Moonbryon. Moonbryon. We already talked about it. I mean, it's crazy to see, the sheer amount of interest in what high end is today. Because I know that, a year ago, high end, and I know you guys do a lot with this too. You talk about exclusive Japanese promos, you talk about gold stars, you talk about different things like that. Double hollow rares and errors and stuff like that. I mean, they were very, very niche items. And now what we're really starting to see in this market is set cards you pull out from packs for sets that came out a year ago, 2 years ago, shooting north in those higher end pieces. So I'm curious, just, I want to talk about the backstory, and I want to talk about kind of how you got to where you are. But just since we're on this topic, when you say high end and you see that 10x growth that you've seen, year over year, at least as of right now, has high end changed for you guys? I mean, is that something that you're still seeing, like the same high end items, they're just selling for more? Or are you guys, taking on cards that, oh, wow, this is this price now? Like, I can't believe it sold for this. Like, are you seeing a little bit of both? I guess what is Kanto Shark seeing on their consignment specifically?
Yeah, hopefully this answers your question. It's really interesting that you bring that up because you're right. It's a vast number of different items now that are over $500. And over the last couple of years, we've slowly raised our minimum of what we would accept. And so when we started, it was $50, and that would limit some of the bulk slabs, capping it at 50. Nothing under $50 that we would accept on consignment. And then we moved it to 100 and then 250. And now it's at 500. And now I almost have to move it up again to like 750 or 1,000 because the health of the market, there's so many cards over 500 now. And my focus with it is just to keep a limited number of items on the marketplace and not just be flooded with a ton of items. It's very curated inventory that we do here.
Yeah, it's kind of a moving target for you guys because I know James from ZNG. Everyone knows ZNG Emporium. He's arguably probably the biggest consigner that I personally know.
Yeah.
Probstein's out there. I don't know Probstein, but I know that ZNG is just kind of he's kind of the market angel at this point with the playtest stuff.
Yeah,
great PR, James.
Yeah.
But I know that with him, with what you're doing, I know one of the episodes I'll have coming up will be with Pallet Town and Crystal Collector. They do a little bit of consignment as well for very specifically Japanese trophies and things like that. You guys have sort of a moving target because you have to manage your volume intake. No one wants like a PSA backlog from a couple of years ago with just consignments. Trying to get stuff in, trying to get stuff out, and with pricing and cards going so up and down. I mean, I'm thinking of the Drowsy from SMB Base right now. I mean, that card literally went from not on my radar at all to I see $700 plus PSA 10 selling. I mean, do you just kind of take those on the chin until you've got a certain amount of time to be able to kind of adjust your price points? Or is that something that, you just say, hey, we'll do this for a little bit and then wait for the price to fall? I guess kind of what's the thought process when you start seeing some of these cards just shoot up in value and they actually hit your tier that you've got? Is it something that you want to limit how many times you're moving your goalposts as far as your minimum, or is it something that you're like, I don't know what we're doing, we're just going to kind of try and adjust to this like ever-changing market?
Yeah, in this market, I got to be flexible, just like an airplane wing, because if the airplane wing isn't flexible, you're going to crash. And so I really got to move with the current of the market and really move with how prices are going. And so, for the first half of this year, we're going to be accepting alt arts. Because right now there's a lot of demand for them. However, the second half of the year, I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know what it's going to look like. I would expect them to continue being in high demand, but they might fall off and retrace a little bit, which I expect to eventually happen. But yeah, we're following the market, and I don't like to change our fees or minimum too much. I want to have a standard that everyone thinks of Kanto Shark by, where they can kind of know a baseline of where we're at. And then, to your point of, the consignment service with it, props to you, whoever's running the consignment service, because it's difficult because not only are you selling to the buyer and trying to give a very white glove experience to the buyer of shipping the item quickly to the buyer, make sure they're happy, make sure it's packaged well, but you're also selling on the side of bringing in consignments, and you really have to control what's coming in, what level of items. You need to be able to close deals so that they come in and that you have that trust between you and your client to get those items to come in. And so if you're running a consignment business or you want to start one, you got a double-edged sword that you got to be good at both sides.
That's a good point. And I'm curious on that too, for the way you guys are, and this is something from someone who, I'm not in the consignment world. I've used consigners. Usually it's, for me personally, it's kind of just who I know or what are they doing, or maybe they posted, a card on their Instagram that I really like. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. They're actually getting this type of stuff in.
Yeah.
Where are you seeing most of your traffic come in from? Is it social media? Is it your website? Is it shows? Because I know you guys do a lot of, in-person shows. I mean, what are you seeing is driving like the bulk of those type of submissions?
Man, I'll rewind back to about 5 years ago, right when COVID was happening. And I didn't see a dedicated marketplace on Instagram where people knew to go to. There was Facebook groups, there was YouTube. And of course there was, other sellers, buyers and sellers, but there wasn't like an established marketplace on Instagram. And I wanted to own that market as fast as possible. I knew I needed to move quickly. And so most of our traffic is through Instagram. However, something I've learned seeing what happened to TikTok and that platform being removed for a period and potentially removed long-term is that I need to spread the love and establish ways to connect with my clients off Instagram. So whether that be email chain, phone numbers, and then especially my website, increasing the traffic on the website, which we're already doing great, but increasing it so I can still do business. If Instagram shut down today, I'm okay. Whereas I don't think that enough people have taken enough time to establish those things outside of social media to protect them from these things that are unknown. And so I think that's what's really excelled us. And to answer your question, yeah, Instagram drives most of it. And then we also run a lot of ads on Google, as well as a couple YouTube sponsors. Shout out to Top 10 Pokémon. We sponsor some of his videos, and he's a great guy too. And so collectively, we're pulling from different sources. And then finally, with Instagram, if you look at our traffic, it's about 80% from Instagram. Right now, it was 100%, but we're trying to get it down to more 50% by spreading the love. So we're starting to, we're going to be going on Reddit. We're going to be going on E4 more. We're going to be going on, not necessarily to buy or sell, but just to be present so people recognize the brand, and just to interact with the customer. And then not going on too much of a tangent, but that's how we've been competing with like the big boys of like the massive marketplaces that are Heritage, Fanatics, these bigger marketplaces that have been around for 20, 25 years. What they can't do is the only way how we can compete, which is shipping same or next day, paying out quicker to the client, and then also having a personal person that you can call me anytime and talk to me, and we're going to have that relationship. And so really all of that collectively has allowed Kanto Shark to just continue to grow, past further than I would have ever expected.
Yeah, I love it. And what's funny with Kanto Shark too is I organically stumbled upon you guys, which I know is like music to your ears. That's what you want to hear, obviously. It was not a sponsored Instagram ad. I just legitimately saw you guys in my feed. So that it was, and then obviously I go through and see what you guys are selling, like what cards you're posting, and that's how it kind of grabs my attention as someone who's fairly deep in this and fairly involved in this. It's less about like how much you're selling, more about like what items are actually going through your service, because I think it's unique, and it kind of shows the type of clientele you guys are actually building out, which with myself, I love seeing trophies. I love seeing high-end stuff. Like that's just like, I'm not buying those every day, so I like to be able to see that and go, okay, let me see what this is selling for. Let me follow this market. And, that's one thing that I really like about consignment services that post a lot of their sales data and post things of like, hey, this just sold or this just listed, et cetera. And I know you guys do that, is it allows me to kind of have easy to see data points on, a page I'm already looking at, instead of me having to go in and type in like eBay solds. And now I've got to go over to Fanatics and see what that sold for, BGS. Like it really is just sort of an entry point for me to be like, okay, here's around the range of pricing, that I'm seeing for this card. Or did this, shout out the Fine Card on Instagram. That's one of my favorite pages that I like to follow.
He's doing great work.
He's fantastic. I mean, he's able to show, and if anybody doesn't follow him, the Fine Card on Instagram, he posts a lot of year over year sales data, which is one of my favorites. He'll take one card that maybe sold for, and I kind of like the seeing the losses personally. And that's just maybe that's my Reddit. Yeah, maybe that's my Reddit, like, Wall Street bets brain coming in, but I like to see cards that went for, they were $80,000, 2 years ago, and then they were $30,000, and now they're only selling for $5,000. I mean, that type of stuff is really helpful, especially if people are looking for higher end cards at an entry point that makes sense to them. I mean, there's been some cards that have been so off of my radar, and then now I look at them and I go, oh, wow, this has come down this much. I mean, mine is always the 1999 Tropical Lens, that sold, I think fairly recently. I think it sold for something like 10 or 12 grand, maybe I can't remember the exact rate. It was like an 8 or 9. And I was like, how is this possible? I thought this was so unreachable, in my sphere. And now, wow, it looks like it's actually coming down. So that just seeing that, on a page was able to allow me to then, okay, let me add this to a saved search. Let me actually look around in this market. So I think consignment services definitely do a lot more than just buy and sell your cards for you. I think they're really helpful data points in our market that allow us to easily access these type of data points without, again, going to every single auction house possible or looking at eBay last sold, things like that. But market talk aside, that's great.
Yep.
I do want to, this is something that I truly find like very unique about you, and probably one of the primary reasons I asked you to come on and us have this conversation. For anyone who, maybe they've just become familiar with you, or maybe they followed you on Instagram for a while, they know you're not a shark. You actually do have a face, which is great.
Yeah.
how did Kanto Shark come to be? I mean, how did you, if you could maybe give us the story of how you kind of started. I know you said you saw a market opportunity. You said, hey, there's no one really filling this. I want to get into this, but
Sure.
maybe kind of those beginning stages of like how you got this up and running. Because I think everyone here is like, okay, I bought raw cards, I graded them, I made a ton of money, or I held my seal and I made a ton of money. Building a consignment business and a consignment service is very different than that. So maybe walk us through kind of what you went through and kind of how you were able to build, to where you guys are today.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'll fast forward in the childhood because we all collected our, Pokemon cards.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I'll fast forward to college in 2012. That's where it really started for me in 2012. The whole reason I got back into the hobby is because I was diagnosed with a rare genetic form of cancer. And so finding that out when you're, 18, 19 years old in 2012, that hits you really hard. And so I needed an outlet besides playing baseball. I was playing baseball at that time, and I needed an outlet to let go of everything I was going through in my personal life with my health. And so that's reborn Pokemon cards. I was like, man, I wonder what's going on. So I started buying base set boxes because that's what I grew up with for $300. And I was like, man, I see opportunity in this. How is this only $300? And I was like, let me buy some more. So I started buying first edition base set blisters for $175. And I was buying these at these amazing prices that I thought, yeah, they had gone way up from where I was when I was a kid. And I was like, well, let's get started buying. And, I need to sell some of this. I got a girlfriend now, I need to be able to afford to take her on dates.
Yeah.
And so started selling, eventually sold it all off until I returned to the market in about 2017 and started buying and selling. And I had a friend reach out and they said, hey, like, you've been buying and selling a lot. Can you sell one of my cards for me? I was like, well, I mean, I guess, yeah, but I got to charge you a little fee or something. And there was born the consignment service. It wasn't an intention to start offering that service before I was behind the name of Kanto Shark. But it happened very organically over time. And then over time, more and more people asked till eventually in 2020, we put a name behind the brand to continue growing. It's been a very organic process, but I don't recommend it to everyone because of how much trust and time it takes, of consistency, of posting, reaching out to people, and all the work into building up a consignment only business. Because we're not buying or selling anymore. It's just strictly consignment. So it's a very niche type of business that we're operating here.
No, I think it's fantastic to hear because it's a similar origin story, but obviously you were thrown a curveball, when you were very young, and being able to, I think it really shows the type of person that you are when it comes to, hey, can you sell a card for me? And now you've turned this into an entire business, as far as what you do. And I think that's something that, a lot of people, especially new, collectors, or especially in this market, like new people who want to come in and make money into this, the first question that I think all of us get, what should I buy? Yes. I have X amount of dollars.
Yeah.
What's gonna double in value, like everybody's seeing happen, in a week. And if it doesn't, I'll take a 40% loss and then I'll get out of the hobby. That's kind of what it is. I think what your story really does is kind of let people know that, like, hey, you can still like casually engage in this hobby, still buy things and do things you like. And as you build relationships, I think being able to kind of see the opportunity of saying, like, well, maybe I would enjoy doing this a little bit more. Myself, and not to make it about me at all, but like just kind of a similar route. I found my childhood collection, like bought and sold a little bit. Yeah. Was unfortunately in the Facebook groups, which, God bless anybody who's
you got out of there.
Yeah, you'll want to delete your Facebook Messenger immediately when you negotiate on those. Mm-hmm. But being able to buy and sell and do those things, I used middlemen for grading for 3 years, like the first 3 years of me being in the hobby. I sent like the most expensive card I've ever owned in my 2004 Tropical Wind Top 16 through a middleman. Wow. I actually took it to their place and dropped it off, and it got shipped out with 4,000 cards. But I didn't know. I didn't think, oh, well, I can grade these myself or, all that. But all it took was a couple of grading returns. And I was like, well, this is taking a really long time. And I kind of want to be the guy who opens up the box and sees what the grades are. So I started grading myself, started doing that a little bit, and then realized like, okay, I need to buy and sell these. Well, Facebook Marketplace is kind of a, it is what it is. And started looking at, well, I wonder if I could sell direct to people on maybe like Instagram. And that's really where my like Peak That Shoe Instagram started. And then you kind of rabbit hole into like, well, these are the type of cards I like. Who else has these type of cards? And then you really start talking to people. You start kind of building a little bit of a presence in this, and you start enjoying it. And I guess the whole point of it is just being able to organically find kind of your interest in this hobby, but then also if there are opportunities for you to grow either financially or just maybe you want to create some sort of operation, it's about being able to recognize that and then actually doing something about it, versus letting one trip up or one hurdle stop you and you're like, you know what, this isn't for me, this is the worst, and I don't know why people do this. And are kind of on that note, I'm curious, when you first kind of started out, I mean, let's say, you've put the name on Kanto Shark, you've got your business established. What were some of like the biggest challenges, or maybe like a specific event or moments maybe that you were like, I never expected this. What's happening? This is the worst ever. I'm sure you've at least had a couple. So like maybe in those early stages, so people can kind of understand how you started. What was an example of that?
How about doing $15 in sales your first week? No, jokes aside, I mean, that is true. I mean, we did $15 in revenue, about $3 profit our first week when we launched. Retracing back, we've shifted a lot in Kanto Shark. We originally launched as an acrylic display company. And so before Phantom Display, shout out to Simon with Phantom Display, before Graded Guard, we launched an acrylic display line, and because there's only one over in the UK. Now, I hated the quality of the shipments that we were getting in, and I hated selling a inferior product to clients. And so we sold them all at a loss and took a massive loss on a lot of inventory because they're all scratched up or broken or what have you, and took a loss. And so I needed to shift into something new. And so we shifted into shark sleeves. And I noticed that with other brands of sleeves, semi-rigids specifically, they would scratch easy, they would break. I saw opportunity there where I could make something better. And so we launched shark sleeves. We sourced a premium plastic. It's a little bit more clear, it's a little bit more smooth, and it doesn't chip and it doesn't warp as easily. Now it's still going to do those things, but because it's plastic, but it is a noticeable difference between a shark sleeve and any other semi-rigid. Well, with COVID, that really slowed us down with receiving our shipments overseas. And so again, had to shift in order to do this. And so one of my points is, before I finish the story, is that through your Pokemon journey, you're going to find opportunities, and you might not be able to do that same opportunity forever. Just like Dan on the last episode, he was on, I believe it was TCG Player, and he had to shift off that. He's been on different platforms and he's had to shift and mold it, but like, I'm sure he wouldn't have it any other way. He's landed where he's at now, which is good for him. And so I think in Pokemon Mark, you have to shift and you have to roll with the punches. So then that's when the consignment service really started to flourish. Along the way though, some of the biggest hits were receiving back charges through thieves. So people making purchases on our website, receiving in the product, and then contacting their credit card company and back charging it. It doesn't matter if you have signature on it. It doesn't matter if we have photos. It doesn't matter what evidence we have. The credit card company is incentivized to protect their client, which is the card holder. And so they're going to give the money back despite the amount. And so we've taken, between 2021 and 2024, we probably lost $30,000-$40,000 total in back charges. That is just, there's nothing that we can do about it. We can fight it as much as we can. And so that really puts a damper on it, because that's money out of the business, and then also my personal pocket, as well as the people that we're paying to continue to grow Kanto Shark. We have, a 3-person team. And so that really puts a damper on their additional income that they're earning for their families. So there's the pressure of also growing the business, but also when you're running Kanto Shark or any other business, your job is to make it as easy and profitable as possible for the people working for you. You need to know what they're motivated by. And if it's money, that's perfect. That's fine, because they get to help their family pay their bills. And so when you receive that pressure, that's very difficult to drive through. and navigate through to be able to stay in business, pay the bills, make sure they're still paid, and then also continue making profit to continue to grow and get Pokemon cards across the world in the hands of collectors. So I think back charges has been the biggest hit to the business. However, now I'm an expert. No one can steal from me. Like, no, you'll never back charge me again. You can't, it can't be done.
You lose it up 30, 40K, that'll, you'll start doing some research.
Yeah, you can't steal from me anymore. And so if anyone else is running a business and you're like, hey, what can I do to really put up some safeguards and so I don't get stolen from, no one robs me, whether it be physically where you keep your inventory or also online with back charges, credit cards, stuff like that. That's something I can help with. Just shoot me a message. Glad to help in that. So I can give you exactly that.
There's got to be more than a few people who are, I know probably 5 or 6 at least that have like launched websites recently as well. And I'm sure that will be like incredibly helpful because, it's kind of like you don't know what you don't know. So people may think like, wow, I sold $10,000 this week in product. This is amazing. And then a week and a half later, they get that negative balance, that gets hit. And I can't even imagine what that was like, when you guys first had it. I'm sure it was like, especially when it comes to Pokemon cards in this hobby, I'd like to think that we have a fairly small community, but we don't, especially nowadays. I mean, now we've got every single person who's, never even looked at cardboard. They just see, okay, here's quick stonks. Let's jump in this. I mean, you've got people from all other markets that are, really just overwhelming, all of the demand and everything here. So, any help that you can provide to people and anyone can provide, those type of, preventative measures is, I think, essential, if anybody's going to go out there, because you were able to recover from that. But there's some people who maybe they really go all in. They're like, this is my opportunity. I'm ready. I've got just enough to really launch this and I'm about to start scaling. And then they get gut punched with something like that. And maybe, I hope that people who watch this or anybody who sees this maybe shares this out or sends them at least, Jared's information and Kanto Shark and be able to say, hey, like, here's what I'm looking at and how do I stop this before it happens, because I can't eat a $30,000, $40,000 bill. But no, that's amazing, for you to be able to offer up. One thing too with inventory, and you don't necessarily have to go over too many specific numbers, but I'm sure you guys have certain months that are up and down as far as volume. I'm sure you're getting a ton right now. Yeah. How do you guys, I guess maybe what's the process of you guys being able to like handle all of these submissions coming in? It's one thing that someone from the outside, I've always thought about consignment businesses. I can't even imagine the type of boxes you guys get shipped. I mean, it's an Amazon box. Here's a shoe box. Here's my old like dog food box.
Diaper boxes,
diaper boxes, all that. I mean, what was it like, I guess, maybe building out kind of that SOP, for being able to handle that? I mean, have you ever run into any issues where, you got people that just send an entire diaper box of, here's 5,000 slabs and you have no idea who it is at that point?
Oh yeah.
What do you do in that situation? How do you guys have it set up to where that doesn't happen? Say if I'm somebody who like, hey, yeah, I want to mail Jared my cards to sell, but like, will he get them? Like, what happens? What's the process of when he receives my cards until he puts it on market and actually moves it?
Man, it's been such a learning experience. And I failed so much so early in that. When I started, I was keeping track of inventory on the notes page on my phone. I didn't know. That was 5 years ago.
You gotta earn those $15 a week in revenue, man. That's what you gotta do.
The quality of your systems and your practice is directly evident in the work and input that you put into. Is directly correlated to the amount of revenue you do. I personally believe that. And so I had terrible systems. I had no organization. I didn't have anything behind me. And therefore I had no sales. And until I really started to be like, how can I make this really easy for people that I get to work with? What would I want? And so what I did was I moved everything to a spreadsheet. Wow. Like an amazing, complicated spreadsheet. But you're right. We did receive in a lot of boxes where people would leave no note and send us a ton of slabs. So we had no idea who it was from, and it would sit on our shelf for months. And the client would reach out asking, hey, like, did you sell any of our slabs? Like, hey, great. Glad to know these are yours. You sent $10,000 with no note in it. But the way we stay organized is it's a lot easier now. In the beginning stages of 2021, when it was very hot, we were getting a lot of sub $100 cards, and we were selling I don't know, 500 cards a month, I would say. And it was a lot of low end stuff, and that was very hard to stay organized. So I've seen and toured other marketplaces in order to better ours, and I wanted to be the best. And so some other very large marketplaces keep theirs in a cardboard box in a large warehouse. I did not want to do that. And so every single one of our clients has their own bin that's labeled inside a vault. And so it's very, it's number and letter correlated to the customer. And so there's A1, A2, A3, A4. And then inside of that, we've have all their contact information and payout information. So we're very organized in keeping the inventory. We can go right to it. And the reason I did it that way is because I wanted to transition Kanto Shark away from being a personal brand and into a sellable business. And so I needed someone to be able to step in for me if I wasn't here. And that's really what I've been working towards the last couple of years, is take me out of it personally, not let me be the face of the franchise, and let Kanto Shark just be a business. And so I did that with the inventory. Now someone can come in, if I allowed them, and they could see the order and know exactly what to do. When an order comes in, an item sold, that code is A1. They know to go to the A1 bin to pull it right out, and they can do it very quickly and easily and ship. So everything's set up on the groundwork for that, because I want it to be a sellable business. I think in this industry, which is great, this is fine for other people that partner with big brands, say like Fanatics or whatnot. And that's fantastic. You can make a ton of money, and that's their vision. But I have a little bit different vision for Kanto Shark. As I grew it, I wanted my own home base for kantoshark.com. I wanted to be in control of it. No one can take away kantoshark.com from me. People could take away Whatnot from you, or Fanatics, or TCG Player, or eBay even. I don't know how that would ever happen, but I wanted control over it to keep the inventory there. And to move it to a sellable business, like I said. And I think that we're really close to getting it fully there. I think that last podcast you talked about Z&G specifically, of handing over the keys to the accounting side. And that's something I'm not willing to do yet. So there's still steps that I got to do to get there, but it's very close. But in terms of inventory, it's a very controlled receive now, if that makes sense, where we're not just taking everything, we're very selective. And so when customers send us cards, they're going to get a confirmation email that day that the cards arrived. They don't have to wait, say it like PSA. I hate waiting for PSA to receive my cards. I want to know that they at least arrived. I don't care.
They've gotten better at it, I will say. Now, if you send your cards to Beckett, you might as well just pretend that they are gone and missing in action for
100%, yeah.
An unknown amount of time.
Before grading, after grading.
Yeah, that's 100%. I remember sending my first sub to them, and last, actually. And that was one of the primary reasons that well, there's a lot of reasons that I don't grade with Beckett and don't deal with that company in particular, but that was one of the things, shipping that out. And I think it was maybe 2 or 3 weeks. And Beckett's, we're both local to Dallas. They're right here. It's not like I'm not shipping internationally to get to them, And it was a few weeks, and I was like, do they have my cards? Like, where did they go? I sent some pretty nice stuff. I really want to see what, I at least want an update, right? And I remember trying to go to the support chat, which is really funny, and then calling in and getting the voicemail for like whoever was working, I guess, customer service that day. I'm not sure, but finally, I think it was maybe a month and a half later, I got a notification that my cards were received. And I think it was funny because that aligned with the turnaround time, maybe for grading or something at the time. So I think that does mean a lot. I mean, I know that, it kind of sounds, and there may be people listening that think like, oh, when you get an email notification, like big deal. That's a huge deal, guys. Like, especially if you're sending in the tier of cards that Jared and Kanto Shark are selling, that's like a huge thing to know, like, okay, it arrived safely. Thank goodness. Like, not everybody can fly in and hand some of these cards to you guys. So it's such a big thing to be able to do from a customer service side.
It's not fair for the client to send and trust you with the $20,000 consignment, and then you don't let them know that it arrived 5-7 days later. That's not fair to them. I wouldn't want that. And so we're really honing in on the experience now, trying to get better at that and try to really learn, ask our customers, get feedback of what we can do to make it as sleek, simple, and trustworthy as possible. And part of that is the being as quick as possible on letting them know their consignment arrived, and then also being timely. We're getting better at this of paying out earlier on the day versus later at night. I mean, we're doing all the little things, and I think these fundamentals in the business have allowed it to be where it's at. Just doing the basics. Say what you're gonna do, you say you're gonna do, and be on time and be consistent. And I think that you can have a successful Pokemon business, despite if anyone else is doing what you're doing. Of Pokemon businesses, you can do the same thing. You can start your eBay consignment business. You can do it on Whatnot. You can go on Fanatics. You can box break. Sell high end. There's so many opportunities right now, but we're just trying to hone in on the basics to grow ours.
Yeah, I love it. I think a lot of people overlook those. There's a couple of questions in chat. Usually I wait a little bit later, but I think these are fairly important and related to the conversation we're having now. So Retrospect, shout out Retrospects. Hit him up for all of your Japanese sealed needs. He's got a lot. He actually did just launch a website as well. He said, if you're taking questions later, I'd be interested in hearing how you drive traffic to the website / Instagram without doing a ton on YouTube or things like that to promote. So I guess what he's asking is, without putting your face out there nonstop like some people do, how are you driving traffic?
Yeah, I've done it very strategically because I'm very much a behind the scenes type of guy. But I really measure what my input is and how much output I get. So I would measure, all right, if I post one time per day, how much does this translate in sales for me? Okay, I got that number. Let's say it's $100. Well, if I post once per day for 7 days straight and I can earn $100 per day, 700, what if I post 10 times per day? You know what I mean? And I'm not posting 10 times per day, but I generally post 3 to 5 times a day on sales, listings, stuff like that. And those views are translating directly to the output, which is revenue, which is what I'm looking for. And so that's one way, is measuring what I'm doing to make money and what's driving revenue, and only focusing on those things. And so the second one is actually, it's old school. Google Ads has done really well for the website, because the whole goal is to drive as much traffic to the website. So we have Google Ads running all the time. And then we have 1 to 2, depending on the month, YouTube other sponsors that are friends that we pay support their business, and they also give us a shout out to their audience. And then, like I said, we're expanding to new audiences where we're marketing through our email list. And that goes back to what I said earlier, where it's so valuable to have an email list, because that's getting into their email box, whenever I want to. I have their permission to get in there and advertise to them, or let them know what we have new, or what we can offer them in terms of discounts and stuff. And then finally, the biggest thing that's actually driving traffic right now is word of mouth. I truly believe in not staying on text to answer questions. I hop on calls or I do voice messages. And there's so many times clients reach out and they're like, hey, I love that you gave me a call and we could talk through this consignment or talk through this purchase on the phone. And I just trust you. I want to do business with you. I'm going to recommend you to all of my friends. And so really not underestimating the organic traffic. That organic traffic has been a lot more valuable than just the Google ad traffic that comes in. That's a one-time buyer, or even on Instagram, just randomly seeing us organically. It's those people that we hop on the phone with and their friends that are the most valuable customers, and we're not going to let them go. We're going to make sure they're taken care of. And so I think all encompassing, spreading the love through different platforms and making sure you're known. And then 2, building on multiple platforms, like I said, especially the email list. I can't tell you enough, the email list. You got to build the email list. That's helped us out so much. And you can directly track the input and output on that too, which is, all right, I sent 3 emails this week, and it literally shows you on MailChimp. That's the service that we use. All right, it generated $1,200 in revenue. Perfect. I love to see any number on that column. So
yeah, Pokemon was on a podcast.
We've done a lot of business with Retro this last year, so he's a great guy.
Good. That's awesome. Yeah, Pokemon talked about his email open rate and kind of went over a lot of those numbers and stuff too. And I think, it's kind of funny when you think like in 2025, like email and word of mouth are really the 2 primary drivers for a lot of people's businesses. And I don't think people realize like it's not just about like how many views am I getting on social media, or how, obviously all that stuff's going to drive in, but even in the industry I'm in professionally, I mean, word of mouth is is gold. I mean, that is literally how you can scale a business, and you can 5-10x a business or just off of one relationship. As long as it's good, you're taking care of your people, you can make a huge impact to that. And I think, if there's people out there who aren't, it sounds harsh, harvesting email addresses from their clients, which they should. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
There's promotions in there to pay for that time, or those eyeballs. I think that's something that, is really looked over a lot. I think people really focus a lot more in on like, how many followers do I have on Instagram? How many, really, if you translate it, how many one-time clicks am I looking at? Like versus people who actually are returning back, or maybe you are sending 3 emails a week and they've opened 2, or, they only open 1, and you're like, all right, let's change the messaging a little bit here. Now you've got 2 opens on average. I mean, I'm sure those are metrics that you guys were looking at. And I think that it can't be overstated enough, like how important it is to keep those engaged eyeballs seeing Kanto Shark, because social media companies change their algorithm. Like, you may not show up on my page if they just decide to one day. It may only go to viral stuff. It may only go to, just, Costco getting raided, and fights happening over blooming waters. It may not be Kanto Shark's page with an edit or with a promotion or with a consignment data point. But email, you have a direct link, which I think is what every business kind of strives to do.
That's right. And then also, with, there's 2 things that come to mind. We didn't focus, what I focused on early was number of likes and views on each post, but that doesn't matter. I mean, to give you an example, most of our posts receive 100 or fewer likes, but we did 1.4 million in sales last year with a very high margin, and
that's amazing.
And it's amazing, but I was focused on that. Taught me that, the social media, the likes, it doesn't matter. That's not translating to sales. And it really refocused me on, all right, focus on revenue. What's driving the revenue? It doesn't matter how well my posts are doing. It matters if just one customer reaches out. In fact, one of our biggest customers came from a $5 ad that we posted on Instagram. We paid $5 per day for a week, and it was a $35 ad, something very basic. And he spent over 100,000 with us, and so it's a $5 ad. So like the return on, I mean, you can't really make that up. So, and I think that it's underestimated, like you said, with the email list, and just organic relationships has really driven Kanto Shark to where it's at.
No, it's awesome to hear. And I love hearing those type of growth stories. It's, because I think people get a bit intimidated to start things in this hobby, to where they think they have to have, a ton of followers or a huge presence in here. And realistically, it's just literally getting out there and like, sort of boots on the ground a little bit, and just kind of building those relationships. And I've said this for years now that I've been on YouTube, on this channel and other people's channel, is we are such a relationship heavy community that, I mean, I couldn't tell you the last time that someone, asked me for, say, like references, for example, because I think once you have a presence and people kind of know who you are, they recognize you, or they know that, oh, Colt and Jared are connected. They know each other. That's that word of mouth almost without even saying it, because they know that, okay, well, they obviously do business together. They've posted together, or whatever it looks like. I know they're good, and I think that trust level is so special in our hobby. And I think if people go into this and treating it as, Jared told me that if I spend $35 a week on my Instagram, I'm going to get a ton of traffic, and I'm going to get $100,000. It's just not like that. There's a lot more steps that I think he's downplaying it a little bit. It wasn't just that $5 ad. It's definitely the customer service, the conversations, the follow up that you did that really close that and keeps that relationship alive.
That's right.
One thing, and I don't know if this is necessarily something that you want to answer here directly, but I know Red or Blue, one of my favorite people in the hobby, Rob's awesome.
He's a great guy.
He said he has a Shopify website that he would like to know more on. Retro was dropping a couple of, I guess we'll call them helpful hints as far as what he was saying, but maybe that's something, you guys can connect after this and talk about that. Or if you want to share maybe some high level points, of protection on that, I think that's important for most people to hear.
Yeah. First thing you can do, Red or Blue, and then reach out to me right after this, and I'll give you like the full in-depth answer. But one, obviously you have to have signature, and you have to have video. All right. The third thing to actually prevent a back charge entirely is never do goods and services via PayPal. There is no protection from the seller, and especially when they're dealing with credit card companies, they just want to end it. Give the money back to the credit card company, and you're going to take a loss. So never take goods and services. Never pay for something without receiving it first. So you built a brand, you're very reputable, and so you deserve to get that product in your hand first before payment sent. So I think that it's less about the steps during a back charge that I can definitely help you with, but it's more about what you can do to prevent it from happening entirely. If you get paid PayPal Friends and Family, I found that I've won every single case on PayPal Friends Family, even though you can still back charge that with your credit card. And so taking safe payment options like that, bank wire, bank transfer are going to be your safest options. And then staying away from Cash App, Venmo. That's where a lot of our back charges have come from because of the legality of it, but I won't go into that. But preventing it altogether, of making sure products in your hand first, as well as never sending money unless it's in your hand. It has to be done. That's the only way to do it. And you deserve it. You have the brand. If they want to do business with you and they reached out in the first place, then they have to trust you at some point. So you deserve that on your business.
Yeah, I think that's great. Super helpful. So yeah, Rob, hit up Jared after this. That would be probably a good conversation for you guys to have, because he's live streaming a ton during the week, and
he is.
There's so many pack reps. So I'm sure that would be important. Retro dropped a question as well, but I wanted to ask you this, because this is kind of related to sort of the marketing, the channels you guys are kind of on, and the mediums in which you get the business out there. James always makes me laugh because he does his YouTube videos. Z&G Emporium on YouTube, by the way.
Yeah.
They are not. I would say even that we have our names in a little bubble next to us is already infinitely past what James does on his YouTube channel. He basically turns the camera on and he talks, talks about the business, does monthly or bi-monthly updates or something like that. Do you ever see yourself expanding into Kanto Shark for here's the type of content that I enjoy, especially with consignment services? I want to see what's consigned. Here's what we got in this week. Here's some really cool stuff. So I feel like it kind of markets what you guys are going to have for the seller, and then also is just an easy way for you guys to say hey, here's the type of stuff that we're taking in, and maybe at that point you share things like what you just said, just in a short tidbit. Do you think you'll ever expand on YouTube? Maybe not yourself, but maybe someone on staff or anything like that, or do you think YouTube is just kind of it's there, maybe in the future, not really as important to you guys right now?
Let me tell you something, Colt. Surrounded by me right now is about $1,500 in lights, a camera on the other side, and we're launching YouTube here in the next couple of weeks. So we already
love it, man. That's awesome. Congratulations.
So it's showing off exactly what you said. A lot of the consignments coming in, first dibs on consignments of all our high-end stuff, and we'll be talking about it. So you're right.
I love it. Thank you. Thank you for spoiling it for everybody. That's amazing, dude. I'm so excited for you guys. I will definitely share that out. It's because I was just thinking, as we're talking through this, I'm like, you're so well spoken and the way you kind of go about it. I mean, again, your setup looks great, by the way. We're not on a phone camera. We're not doing 360p today. So, being able to do that, I think, is so important. I remember watching all the old S and Pratt videos of whenever Scott would post up, here's what I got in. And I just love seeing cards, ultimately, even if I'm not going to be engaging or buying that stuff. I mean, you show me a PSA 10 Gold Star, I want to see it. I want to hear about it, things like that. I think it's just, because Instagram and places like that, it's just still pictures. Sometimes you'll get a video, but it's, it is what it is. But a YouTube video,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Being able to see that stuff is so cool. And then, obviously sealed boxes are always fun to see as well. But, that aside, congrats. I can't wait. Please let us know. Guys, I will have all of Kanto Shark, all of their social media and stuff and everything in the description after this video. I'll search if you've got there's a 0 sub Kanto Shark channel. I'll find it too, but I'll wait for you to send that to me. But one question Retro had to ask as well. He said, are you looking to curate a specific demographic for your business? Are there certain things you do to gain the type of customer you believe fits your high-end business model? That's a really good question, because they are very different type of clients, I can imagine, than people sending you, $500 subs at the minimum tier.
Yeah. That's the main reason that we shifted. Is not just because of revenue, is because of the type of clients that we were dealing with. I find that sub $500 buyers, quite frankly, they are very hard to deal with. They're very picky. They have a lot of expectations. They want a white glove experience, a luxury jet to take them where they're going, when really they got to fly Spirit. That's just how it is. And so we sunk a lot of our time into making clients happy, and those people ended up being one-time buyers. So we really wanted to shift to higher end, because a lot of the higher end you go, the quicker the sale, the easier the sale is. A lot of people tend to think that, man, like it's easy to sell $100 box. Man, it's a lot easier to sell a $10,000 card than a $100 box. I mean, it really is. And you might say, well, Jared, there's some $10,000 items on your website, right now that have been sitting there. Well, they might be listed a little bit higher than market or something, but the process of the sale specifically is easier. And those type of clients, if you really look at it, how many $100 boxes would I have to sell to equal one $10,000 item? I pack one $10,000 item, or I pack, what is that? 100 of the $100 boxes to get there. We really wanted to be smart with our time. And so to get that, what really changed the game for us was actually grading a CGC 10 first edition Zard and then selling it for 60,000. And I think just getting one big sale like that really transitioned the mindset of what Kanto Shark's capable of. We already had everything in place for it. We just needed one big sale, one big person to trust us with something. We couldn't get it, so we went and graded it ourselves and sold it. And then we got something in else that was 25,000. We sold it 40,000. We sold it 10,000, 5,000, 2,000. And now over time, through doing this for about over a year now on the high end, we've transitioned to where I want people to view Kanto Shark as a high-end marketplace, almost modeled after like a luxury watch shop. That's where we're headed. We're headed to a luxury watch shop where you get to walk in and have the highest end collectibles there. And those are the type of clients that we want to work with on that. But it takes just selling the big items and believing in yourself that you can do it. You don't have to wait till you're a certain number of followers or views. That doesn't matter at all. It's just getting in contact with just one big buyer, getting a sale, and then you get to meet all of their friends too, which is where that organic came in. So that's a fantastic question. That's a really good question on the high-end business model.
No, it is. It's one of those things that, as someone who has been privy to a lot of the back-end private brokering conversations and dealt a little bit in that, like, hey, could you, help me move this $100,000 item? That's one thing that I think there is a demand for it, and people don't, one thing too, especially with, and this is kind of a question that I have for you when it comes to who are you really seeing that's, approaching you with these items. But for myself, I've had quite a few people reach out, and I've brokered like a few different things that are a little bit more higher end. It's not really something that I like purposely try to do, but they see that it's about relationships, right? It's like, hey, I see X amount of people. Do you have anyone who could look into this and purchase this? And I've done that a few times in the past. I think there is definitely organic demand there because people aren't able to find a company or a business who does that for them. They just see individuals, and the same conversations they're having. Well, here's a fee that I can do. Here's how I can reach out to, when it comes to that. But one thing that I've realized is a lot of these sellers have had these items for a very, very long time, and they were not worth what they are now. So they're kind of very new to coming in and saying, yeah, can you help me out with this life-changing money? And that's a lot of pressure, especially for like an individual to do. Are you seeing, as far as your, maybe your sellers primarily? I know buyers are going to come and go, but sellers right now, are you seeing more of like, collectors who have just had their collection and they're ready to cash out? They're like, look, Jared, I've been sitting on this stuff for 10 years. I love the market. I'm ready to get this money. I want you to do this for me. Or are you seeing more people who are quote unquote investing? Maybe they've went out and bought, they've flown to Japan, they bought a bunch of stuff they got out from there, they've graded it, and now they're ready for someone like yourself to move because they're not really established on marketplaces like eBay or Fanatics or anything like that. Is it a 50-50? Are you seeing it weighted more one than the other for at least the higher end items?
I would say it's transitioned to 60 to 70% crypto bros are moving into the market. And their reasoning is moving crypto or stocks that they've sold into a tangible asset. And so that's where I'm seeing a lot of my clients, at least on the buying and selling side. But with selling, we're seeing a lot of collections that people are finding their collections. They're taking the time and effort to go ahead and grade them themselves. And they're like, we don't know where to sell them, but we saw that you had a location on your profile of Dallas, Texas, and I just trust someone that I can just drop off with in person.
Right.
And so I think being local, having where you're located on your Instagram is a powerful tool. I mean, we've gotten so many new consignments with people finding their collections that they've held on forever, or maybe they've already been buying and selling graded cards. They have booster boxes that are ready to sell. They see Dallas and they're like, oh, I can just drop it off with you. So being able, that convenience factor has really helped on that sense to obtain those types of customers. But percentage wise, I don't know off the top of my head, but spitballing, it's a lot of investors that are looking to park their money in the right things.
No, it's good to know. And I think that permeates throughout the entire hobby. I mean, all the money's coming from somewhere. It's not just like, everyone the last few years just got all this money and now they're just
they get such a massive pay raise and I got another 30K liquid cash to spend on Pokemon.
Yeah.
That's just
I gotta go buy a Charizard immediately.
Yeah.
Kind of wrapping up here toward the end, and Retro, I'll get to your last question. And don't worry about hogging questions. I love this stuff. I'm the same way in any chat, any live stream. So when it comes to what you guys are doing, I know you guys are pretty much moved to almost permanently like just consigning other people's items. Are you buying and grading things for you guys to sell yourselves? And if so, like how much is that as the business side? How much is that as maybe just yourself? I mean, I can't imagine you guys are able to sit, and maybe this is true, just myself. I personally couldn't sit on the sideline and see what's happening in this market right now and not dip my toe in that either personally or just, maybe the business itself. That's another revenue stream. Are you guys doing that? Is that something that you think takes away from the focus? Is it just another way to create revenue for you guys? I mean, what are you seeing right now? What are you guys doing?
Yeah, strictly, I mean, all 1.4 last year for 2024 was all consignments, which is great. We did almost zero buying and selling ourselves just because we were so busy and locked down with what we were doing and trying to grow and trying to manage that and keep all of our clients happy on the buying and selling side. However, this year, we didn't do it publicly on Kanto Shark. I'm doing it personally. We opened it up for our first round of investment through friends and family. And so we're raising a certain amount of capital, and that capital is strictly used for buying and selling under our roof that we have. Since we already have an established selling platform, we already have multiple offers coming into us organically to buy out massive collections that we can't quite frankly afford for the business right now. That's just where we're at because we have too many of them. We can't buy everything, but we want to, but we don't have the capital to do that. It's a great problem to have, but also I said, all right, well, we're missing a lot of opportunity here. We have the selling platform established. We need to begin buying. And so that's something that we're moving into this summer, going into tax season and summer, is we're going to be buying a lot now that we're in that middle stage of raising money and just about close to closing on it in order to continue to grow the business. That's what's going to take us where I'm a very vision-oriented person. And so we did 1.4 million. We're on track and going to do 3 million. And the next year we're going to do 10 million. And we have the steps to do it. And I think that for anyone in a Pokemon business, you should be looking forward that and be looking at those numbers every single day in order to get there, or you're not going to get there. If you're running a marathon and there's no goalpost, you don't know when you're going to finish. You don't know where you're going.
You're running for fun like Forrest Gump at that point.
Yeah, that. But it's circling all the way back to Kanto Shark and where it's at right now. I know we're kind of wrapping up, but we've really been focused on this year, which will be the buying and selling side, but also to make it a sellable business. We were approached by another marketplace. Now it's off NDA, so I can talk about it, but actually Rare Candy wanted to buy out Kanto Shark. And so we had a year-long negotiation. We're both Dallas-based. We have very similar goals. We're very much competitors. And so it made sense in a lot of terms. Where we would merge both businesses and make just a powerhouse to be able to compete with even larger marketplaces than both of us. I mean, Rare Candy is much larger than we are, but we have a lot of systems and stuff that we could offer them where if we merged. Well, what I realized during that process was Kanto Shark wasn't ready to be sold. It wasn't a sellable business as much as I wanted it to be. And so I had to go back to the drawing board to make it that. So the focus this year is buying and selling and building it into a business that runs without me, even though I very much will still be a part of this. And, working 12-hour days is awesome to me. And so that's where we're headed with it.
That's so interesting to hear, because that is, obviously I know Rick Andy. Lee's a great guy. They've got a great organization over there, and so it's cool to see. It's cool to see, like, another, again, maybe if you didn't have Dallas, Texas, they would have never reached out. That's just another reason for the location.
Yep.
What I'm going to do is, guys, we usually wrap up about an hour, but I do want to get these last few questions. If you guys have any question at all for Jared as we talk through this, I can tell you right now, Jared and I could probably go 3 hours if we keep it going. I have so many other questions and things, but just a couple of other questions we have here. Retro will bring you in. So sorry to hog other questions again. No big deal, man. He said, has Jared seen any patterns in the data with buyer behavior that helps him make decisions on potential speculation / the future direction of the market? So are your buyers your crystal ball, and are you seeing trends, is what he's asking.
That's the only crystal ball that I have, Retro. The only one that I have is collecting our data month to month to seeing what trends. And if you've noticed on our Instagram, we're always calling for first edition base. We're calling for gold stars. We're calling for ponchos, and we're calling for alt arts. Because what I've learned is clients want liquidity, and they like to hear that word when they're buying it. They like to know that they can liquidate it when they need to, if they run into a personal problem or a health bill or something happens in their life, or they just want to sell it to buy a ring, an engagement ring, or they're going to have a baby. They want to know that you can liquidate this stuff. So I'm really seeing a trend in people being smarter buyers and not buying so much junk and crap, and they're focusing on the really awesome items. Even if it's a high pop item, no one cares. The demand is there on the most popular stuff. So that's what we're continuing to call for, and that's what the clients continue to buy. And I think that this year, gold stars, alt arts, ponchos, I think they're going to blow past a lot of what we all think, even what I think, in price this year. That's me.
That's financial advice, guys, if you didn't know. I'm kidding.
Say that again.
I said that's financial advice, guys, if you didn't know.
Yeah, no financial advice here, but but that's just what I'm seeing on our numbers. I can't keep them in stock. They always sell out, and so I have to focus on that. I can't. It's so many and so much of our sales volume that I can't keep it in stock, and so that tells me that the trend is going to continue going, at least for now. There's no signs of it stopping right now. It will eventually. It'll slow down and retrace just as normal, just the ebbs and flows of it.
Yeah. Hopefully we've got at least 24 months. That's my personal hope.
I hope for that. I think that we'll get at least 12 months. I think 12 more months. I think.
For sure. Pool Father, glad to see you here, man. It only takes one. He's on YouTube. Everybody check him out. He said, what's in your personal collection? Do you have a personal collection?
Yes, man. Early on, in fact, it's Pool Father's fault, because he actually bought my first edition CGC 10 Zard for $60,000. So he took one of my biggest pieces in my personal collection. So he drained me right there. No, it's very limited now. I'm very focused on just the liquid items. So we have Evolutions, Evolving Skies, Prismatic, Japanese 151, English 151 for the investment side. For collection size, I love first edition base. So we have first edition base, hollows, and PSA 9. We've had PSA 10s, but you can't justify a PSA 10 hollow when that money can be used for the business and you can buy a 9. So that's how I view it. I can still enjoy the hobby. I love collector at heart, but owning too many big cards, it doesn't make sense. That money could be used to make more in order to help other people grow their collections, and also help pay the people more that are working at Kanto Shark. That's my goal, is to make sure they're happy and they stay. I don't want to lose the good people that I have. I want to make sure they are happy to help at Kanto Shark every day. I
love it, man. Well, guys, that should wrap us up. Again, I will have Jared and Kanto Sharks, all of their socials, everything in the description of this video. After it goes live, I completely forgot to update it. I just put his beautiful face in the thumbnail and completely forgot to put the info. So that will be put up after this goes live. But, Jared, I guess, final thing for us to leave on, just kind of a brief thing. I know you said that you guys are starting YouTube in a few weeks, which congrats. I literally can't wait, to see what you guys put out. But anything else, this year that, is anybody going to see you in person at any shows this year? Any other big things that, where can people find Kanto Shark outside of the websites, the social media piece? I mean, what else are you guys doing?
Yeah. Well, first, shout out to you, actually. Colt actually handles our image edits for our website and our emails, and we're launching a sold history page. So those will be displayed on our sold history page for all the data as well. And so thank you for handling that side of the business. Looking forward to the rest of the year on that end. Secondly, we have the YouTube channel launching. We'll be at Collecticon Dallas and Fort Worth. We'll be vending, mainly networking. I view it as more of a networking event versus a selling event, especially for high end, which is great. Allows us to meet other businesses. So would love to meet you. And then we have a new data page launching on every listing where you'll be able to see the pop report of the card. You'll get to see past sales data on other platforms as well. So you can really get a good understanding of that. And then finally, just business tips and everything. Obviously, being consistent in your Pokemon business, measuring your input and what output you get out of it, and then really diving into bettering yourself and the value that you're adding your customers. What can you do that the big boys can't? Has really helped me get to where Kanto Shark is today. And then finally, if you've never done business with Kanto Shark, we're a consignment service. We receive in consignments from all over the world and we sell it for our clients. Reach out if you want to get your cards sold. It's just strictly Pokemon and cards $500 and over. Would love to talk with you. We'll actually hop on a call. We won't be hidden behind texts. So thank you for having me on. I love these awesome guest lists that you have coming up. I'm really excited to listen to those as well.
Yeah. No, I appreciate it, man. You're privy to a few more than most people. So yeah, it's going to be fun. It's going to be a good time. I so appreciate it, chat. Thank you guys for being interactive. Thank you for all the questions. I will see you guys. I'm actually, let me pull up the calendar here. Next Saturday, forgive me for anyone who sees one sooner than this. I've got a lot of them scheduled, but I believe March 1st, so next Saturday will actually be my next one of these. We'll have Mr. Alex Nostalgianomics on. Interesting timing. He's had a lot of stuff going out in the ether recently, but I'm really excited to talk to him. But Jared, again, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you, chat. I so appreciate every comment and everybody who comes in and watches these. So thank you guys again. And Jared, we'll talk a couple minutes after this, but chat, see you guys later. Thanks.
Take it easy.